Hello and welcome everybody to today's episode of Instant Replay. We're sitting in on April the 2nd, and April comes after March. What happens in March?
March Madness time.
And that's Stephen McLeod, our co-host of the day.
The one and only.
The one and only. We'll be talking about college basketball, maybe a little bit of high school basketball. Hope you enjoy today's episode.
Come on. Damian Lillard makes me laugh. Who did they play last night? Portland played they played somebody.
Well, I know
Hold on. No.
This
There was
game.
He did something to somebody last night, a crossover. And it made me laugh because the guy is it was Phoenix. It was Phoenix last night, and he was with he played against who's the guy from Kentucky, the point guard?
Devin Booker?
No, not Devin Booker.
He's from Kentucky.
Innes?
Innes?
I think it's Innes.
One sec, let me look it up.
It's not Tyler Innes. It used to be Kentucky's old point guard. He's like my height. And Damian Lillard was just like left, right, playing with him, left, right, going behind his back, doing a turnaround, and then, nice little floater over you.
You know, he's the most...
Tyler Ulis.
Ulis.
Underrated for how good he is.
No.
Like he's an all-star superstar level.
Oh yeah.
But he's willing his team back into the playoffs right now.
Willing them back. Oh, come on, man. Like
same thing he did last year.
Last year, yeah.
LaMarcus Aldridge left and everyone's like, "Okay, this is a lottery
Yeah, they're
team."
done. Yeah.
And now you're seeing him doing exactly the same thing. They were halfway through the season up until the All-Star game.
Yeah.
They were at the same record they were last year, and they're literally following the same talk track.
No, because like here's the thing with Lillard, and I think this is the major problem. There's a couple of major problems. Number one is he's stuck in the West Coast, but he's stuck in the Pacific Northwest. The other thing I see that's happening is that there's too much of a primary focus on some of the hotbed areas in America. So San Francisco, Golden State, Los Angeles, Chris Paul. We'll talk about that later. Isaiah Thomas kind of ripped him apart. You're talking about Houston. You're talking about Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is not a huge market, but it's so far east that we get to watch it a lot. But it's in the Western Conference, so it makes more of a difference because those teams are kind of considered the upper echelon teams, and he gets lost in the shuffle. Like him and CJ McCollum. It happens. I've seen it. I'm older than both of you guys, so I've seen this happen numerous times. Because I remember when the Portland Trailblazers had like Terry Porter and was talking Clyde Drexler, and they were constantly looked over at all times. And then when they finally got to the NBA Finals, everybody knows what happened. It was the Michael Jordan shrug. Like, come on, this guy can't guard me. Like, but it constantly happens
because there's teams like Houston Rockets at that time that were unbelievable. If Michael Jordan wasn't around for a few more years, they could have potentially had a dynasty of their own.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, they make it 1 year, Portland, and it's great, but people don't remember that. And I feel like that's the same thing with this current team because you have two extremely dynamic point guards that potentially could be considered the best backcourt in the NBA. You think about the Raptors with a great backcourt. You think about
the Raptors get more love than they do.
Yeah,
if you really think about it,
and rightfully so because look at the record, look at the team dynamic, but you can't take that away from Damian Lillard and McCollum.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a scenario. So hear me out. I'm gonna propose a trade to you, and you tell me how big of a star these two guys will be if they go to this team. So let's just say Miami just loses everything. So they trade Justice. Don't judge me on this. Justice Winslow and Hassan Whiteside to Portland.
Okay.
They dump Tyler Johnson. I don't know how that guy makes that much money. I swear to you.
Well,
honestly,
this
I would.
Guy cried when he got so this guy threw up when he got his contract because he never thought he'd
Of
make that
course,
much money
I
in his
would.
life.
If my girl messages me right now and I tell her that I got 25 million, she would throw up too. But imagine them, both of those guys, on Miami. You blow up Miami, you just have those two guys in and you build around them. Do you want to know?
So think of it this way: it's Portland being brought over to the East. Miami's already in the playoffs.
Okay, no. Let's go.
What I'm
Let's
saying,
go worse.
Miami's already in the playoffs, so you could possibly be, fifth seed in Miami in the Eastern Conference right now.
Yeah.
Look at the after the top four. There's a massive drop off.
Not even. Okay, you know what? Let's make this worse. My man. Okay, who's the bottom two teams in the Eastern Conference right now? No. Don't say Brooklyn because nobody wants to go to Brooklyn. I love Brooklyn.
Magic?
Yeah, Magic.
And 76ers.
Oh man, that would be okay. Now I'm excited. Imagine both of those guys on the 76ers. Just imagine that. Like you would get goosebumps. You'd be like, oh my! You'd want them both to get cornrows and headbands and just wear like Iverson's number again. You would feel that Iverson feeling once again.
Hey, trust the process, man. You add these two. No. I'm just saying.
But I know that. So think about it like this: C.J. McCollum and Lillard. Those are your guards. You're gonna have to play small there. You have Simmons, who's going to be pass first to two guys who like to shoot. That's crazy. And then you have, let's just say I trade Okafor away and I get someone else. Let's just say we'll figure that out later. We draft someone who's pretty good, and then we have the process. I don't even
freaking Embiid.
No, the process. That's how. Anytime you say his name, that's what I'm gonna say. Yeah, honestly,
it should be whispered now.
It should only be whispered because
it'll be lore of the NBA.
Exactly. No, hold on. Did you hear that? The process. Goosebumps right there, man. What, 7'2", fresh, doing the Dougie in the middle of a Meek Mill concert, just tearing off his shirt. Management hating him for it. Him asking Rihanna out.
Do you remember when he got drafted? Do you remember he wasn't in?
Yeah, he was at home.
He was at home, and his reaction was just the worst.
Perfect. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm jumping to this. We'll get back to that. But do you remember when Yao Ming got drafted? Do you ever remember that? So when Yao Ming got drafted, it was like I'm wearing a fitted cap right now. So all you saw was him, his mom, and his dad, and you saw them. They knew exactly where they were going. So they put on the cap and they looked so happy, but it was so awkward. But when you saw Joel Embiid get drafted, Joel Embiid looked like, when you play 2K and you just lost and you're sitting on a couch and you're waiting for the next game to play against someone else. He was pissed. Holy mac! It looked like he was playing without the 76ers. It looked like he had NBA All-Star team from 1990s and lost against somebody who had the current 76ers. And he was like, man, if I get back on these sticks, I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to mess this guy up. And he just looked so... And I think he was wearing like track pants too. Like, oh.
It was so bad that they had to go back later and say, no.
And redo.
We're going to... It wasn't that we were upset that we got drafted here. But yeah, adding C.J. McCollum to a team like that. C.J. McCollum, what... 4 years ago, had one of the biggest upsets. Was part of one of the biggest upsets.
Yeah, Leaside versus Duke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Love that.
What do you love?
Oh, no, man. You know what? I'll. There's a couple of meccas on this planet where if I get to them, I'll sob, crying. So there's the Carrier Dome at Syracuse because I've watched the Syracuse Orangemen all my life. Like before, like Lawrence Moten. I know for a fact people are going to be like, who's Lawrence Moten? You know the high socks? Remember when people used to wear high socks? That's my guy. He wore high socks in the mid late 80s, early 90s. He wore high socks. Derek Coleman. There's a bunch of guys. Like there, Michigan's arena, and then there's Durham. Yeah. Raleigh Durham's or Duke's Cameron Indoor Arena. But yeah, like... I'm not saying, hey, I'll say this. When I have kids, I would love for them to go to Duke. because Duke is like a amazing private school. If my kid there's 3 schools on the planet. If my kid goes to them, I don't have to say nothing to nobody. Anybody who says anything doesn't have to say. I'm not gonna cuss. It will not be able to say anything to me. There's Stanford, there's Duke, and then there's Columbia. Those are the schools, and maybe Michigan. Michigan's the outside favorite. And Texas if they run track, because I'm Jamaican. But yeah, those schools. But all the guys who beat Duke are all in my like top tier guys. Like Dylan Brooks, I'll talk about him later on. My guy, Misaga. Also, Jason Kidd, my favorite player on the planet, only as a player, not as a human being.
I'm glad you put that out there.
Because do you see how I like differentiated that? Oh, I love him. I love Jason Kidd to death. I can watch film of him all the time. I pattern my game after him. I'm a little bit bigger than he is. I'm but shorter. But as a player, I love him to death. As a human being,
thank God there's no videos of that.
No. I may bump
you
into.
Wouldn't want to watch that.
Nah, man. Like I'll tell you how much I like Jason Kidd. A long time ago, I will not say who this person is. Got me a game. Got me to go to a New Jersey Nets game against the Raptors. It was the night where Jason Kidd got traded. And the only reason why I wanted to go to the game was just for that. I left halfway through the game.
You told me this story.
Yeah, man. I was so angry. You do not know how angry I was. But anyways, going back to how much we dislike Duke. Don't get me wrong. If I have a kid and he's good and he ends up playing for Duke, this is all washed away. Coach K,
you want him there?
I don't care. Coach K, any of the coaches there. Nah, man. Like any of the guys, Wojciechowski, if he comes back from Marquette, yeah, man, it's all good. But those guys that beat Duke by themselves, like Jason Kidd, like Dylan Brooks, like, and that was funny when Dylan Brooks actually said that thing to Coach K. The only reason why I'm saying this so low is because one day I may bump into Coach K, and then Coach K may say like, "What's up?" Like he may press up. But like again, CJ McCollum, and now we're gonna go back to the 76ers. If that was a 76ers team, where do you think they would end up? Like in terms of the Eastern Conference? I think, to be honest, let's just say everybody's healthy, including Bogut right now. Where do you think they would lie, and where do you think the Raptors would be? I'm so sorry.
Home court advantage for sure.
Throughout the playoffs?
I
say a 2 seed, man. I give Cleveland if Bogut's not hurt and they're running on all cylinders, they're still a number 2 seed or still a number 1 seed, but Philadelphia would be a solid number 2, and it would be a horse race.
If these two are on that team, then eventually, if not this year, they'll be number 1.
Okay, so I don't know why my mind is flipping over this way. So if it's them, I don't know. It would be a horse. I would want to see the Eastern Conference Final. Like I love Toronto to death. This is my city. I talk about it like all the time.
You and your dad wake up at 4 o'clock to talk about basketball?
Basketball all the time. Like it gets. My dad wears a Lucky shirt. His Lucky Drake Knight shirt. If he doesn't wear the Lucky Drake Knight shirt, my mom gets angry at him because they end up losing. And she doesn't wash it just for that. Every offseason, she washes it. And then when preseason starts, he starts wearing it and they start winning. Hence, if you see any of the winning games, it's because of my dad.
Is he wearing it tonight?
I don't think so. I'm sorry, Toronto. But nah, y'all gonna lose tonight. Oh no, I'm going to that game tonight. That's against Philadelphia. We're circling back. See, circle of life. But yeah, no, man. I think they'll win tonight. But it'll be a good game.
So what do you think of college basketball versus NBA? We love watching our sports. We're in Toronto. We love the Raptors, though. But watching college ball, you're the guy that I can come to and I can bring up an NBA player, and you're like, yeah, he went to this college in this year.
Like I don't know, man. Like okay, so here's the reason why I'm built a certain way about college basketball in contrast to NBA. So I'm as a kid, I was a huge Charles Barkley fan. Like sickening to the point where like I wanted to get his shoes and like the Air Max Black like shoes. And that's the ones that Chris Webber wore, if y'all want to know. Chris Webber Charles Barkley, Jason Kidd, favorite players of all time. If you could tell, all of them have bad attitudes. But the main reason why I liked college basketball so much is because it was so unpredictable. I mean, so unpredictable. The one major thing that I used to see when I was growing up was that it it didn't matter how much. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say how much. It didn't matter what the school was or how much they got paid. It was about who had the best coaching and who had the best team around them. Again, I saw a lot of games when I was a kid, and keep in mind in NCAA, if you're as old as I am, I'm a lot older than y'all. You got to see a lot of games on like Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and then you would have your obligatory like 3 or 4 NBA games on a weekend until they created a format that made more games on certain days. So I was able to watch like a lot of games, like a lot of Michigan, a lot of Big Ten games like Michigan State, a lot of SEC games, a lot of Kentucky, a lot of that stuff. And then when the influx of Canadians started coming in, and keep in mind, it's not like an influx like, oh, there's a lot of them that just came in. In a lot of cases here in Canada, there wasn't necessarily a big influence of basketball.
When did that
before
start?
the Raptors? I want to say around the time I was young, like when I was like, I would say early 70s, 80s, because in Canada there was a huge surge in the East and a little bit into Montreal and going into Toronto. A lot of immigrants who used to play basketball a lot. One of the jewelers I go to, he used to be on the Russian national team in 1955, I think.
Oh, wow.
Or he was on one of the feeder teams. But there was that influence of external.
So an external influence of people that were moving into the country.
But also there was an influx of athletic people that came in from all over the country. It doesn't necessarily mean like the Caribbean. I mean like all over the world. Like kids that parents used to be track stars, or kid like Andrew Wiggins. There's kids that their parents were natural athletes, like volleyball players or other athletes, where there were transferable skills, and even soccer as well. Hand-eye coordination in terms of cricket as well. The one thing I noticed when I was a kid is that you would see the onesie, twosie Canadian kids that were seniors in university, and there wasn't necessarily a big push on like, hey, national pride of them being there. I think when the national pride actually started coming in was when Steve Nash.
Okay.
When he was at Santa Clara, because you would always hear about like phantom stories.
6 foot tall,
like
scrawny guy.
Okay, so here's a Steve McLeod story. So that I may mess it up. So it's kind of weird. I'm kind of connected to Steve Nash in a weird way. But I'll tell you a story.
The resemblance.
Yeah, I know. No. It's actually, it'll actually circle back and it'll be funny. But Steve Nash, small school in Vancouver, doesn't get a lot of scholarships, doesn't get a lot of things. Coaches sends out like a million tapes like any other Canadian at that time. There was no YouTube, no nothing. Goes to Santa Clara, and then I read in an SI article that he used to take what's called tennis balls and then dribble from class to class with it and try not to mess up. And I remember hearing that, and then the year before I saw him play in the Canada national game, and he would only dribble with his right hand against the Americans. That's it. I think it was either the Americans or another European team, but he only used his right hand. He would not switch over to his left hand if his life depended on it, because you could see how nervous he was. And then he blossomed. And then, again, Jamal McLeod going to Kentucky. Like, that was crazy. And, again, I'm older than you guys. Eastern Commerce, if you guys ever want to check out any footage on them or read up on those guys, that was the team of like the 90s. I would say 90s, 2000s. They had so many guys that either went to great universities or went to the NBA. It would blow your mind. Like Mike Kabongo went to I think he went to Eastern Commerce. Don't quote me. I'm gonna say that he did. A bunch of guys in Toronto, like Denham Brown, who did 100 points when he was at West Hill. Like, that's crazy. But there was that influx, and then again, there was a growth of AAU. basketball with grassroots, CIS, bounce. Again, the McIntyres, the Inneses, stuff like that. Andrew Wiggins, and then I would say when the Raptors came in, I think that's when everything changed because
where that love for the sport started to grow
man.
slowly to a point where 20 years from then, now essentially, it's like enrooted into the city.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't
People
even say
live and breathe that.
No. I wouldn't even say enrooted in the city, enrooted in the whole country. Because when, unfortunately, when the Grizzlies left, it kind of left a hole on the West Coast. So a lot of those.
Steve Francis did a number on them.
Yeah, that drafting was bad, man. Oh my God, I
love
you, Steve Francis.
Steve Francis is an amazing player.
Yeah,
but he single-handedly destroyed that franchise in Vancouver.
I would have said big country, but that's just me. But he did good. Like, think about it like this: you would have had Pau Gasol, Mike Bibby, Steve Francis. Wow, that would have been good. Anyways, but yeah, you saw this big influx of like AAU basketball, and I remember again Steve McLeod's story of the day. I remember hearing about stories about like, and this always used to happen when I was young, maybe before y'all were born. We used to have Toronto versus Detroit games, like high school games. So you would always hear about like these guys coming through, like Glenn Rice and then Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, like high school wise. And don't quote me on that. I know there was good players that came. I think Vashawn Leonard was one of them that came. But yeah, they used to like. You used to be like, oh man, we're going against Americans. I don't know how this is gonna go. But after a while, I remember there was an article a long time ago about grassroots playing in a tournament, and like Americans just like, okay, cool, they're from wherever. And I remember I think grassroots won that whole national tournament, and everybody there was like,
who are these guys?
Who are these guys?
And you know what it is? It's when you're that young, even from there to college, and sometimes when it builds up into, for some people when they go to the NBA, there's always this passion for the sport.
Oh yeah,
you're doing this to win. You're not doing this because it's a business. You're not doing this because there's some
pride.
Yeah, it's just the love for the sport, the love for basketball that you do that for.
And here's the fundamental difference between Canada and the U.S. in terms of basketball. At least in my mind, this is not thinking about anybody else. I think here we haven't. I think we're kind of like. I think Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, PEI. Not PI, Newfoundland, stuff like that, and then going on into the West Coast. I think we have a mentality of if we love basketball, we'll die for basketball, or we'll have another sport in mind, but that's our primary sport. And the one other thing that makes us a little bit different is that our university system is a lot different here than there. There are some universities in BC that will give you a scholarship to play basketball, but otherwise you're playing for yourself. Like if you go to Humber, or I went to Sheridan, or
U of T, wherever you go,
Guelph, McMac, or anything, like you had to be a student. Yeah. Like you actually had to be a student, and you actually had to pay for yourself. If there were grants there was grants, but it wasn't. It
wasn't like a sports scholarship.
Yeah.
So the other day I was at the University of Toronto, the Mississauga campus.
Oh, that's kind of bad. I love that facility though.
Yeah, they were having a varsity game at like 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. So it's not like prime time in any capacity.
But here's a fundamental difference at 10 o'clock in the morning start, because my brother and sister used to run track. We used to go to Buffalo a lot, and I remember the whole town would come out just to watch that type of sport. And my brother played college football for Ottawa, and people would come out like early morning, 1 o'clock, whatever it is.
It was packed.
It's a very different thing. Like there's a love for your school. It isn't like the U.S. The U.S. it's crazy.
It's like batshit crazy people.
Yeah, man.
Tailgating.
Oh man. Oh, the brisket in Texas. Wow. But yeah, man. Like there's a huge difference. Here's the thing. If I'm gonna say this, so I'm gonna pretend Saarim's my son. So Saarim wants to play basketball. Sorry to say that, man. Okay, I'll say this. Little Malcolm Jamal Warner, my son, wants to play basketball. His only roots are at back when I was a kid was the following: you play basketball a lot, you get really good, you go to university or college here in Canada, and then you either coach or you try to go overseas or whatever else. That's usually the limit. If little Malcolm got a scholarship, take it. Like don't
question that.
don't question it. Just take it. And again, I've had friends who've gotten scholarships. Now back to Steve Nash. So here's the connection. So when I went to school, I knew a kid. His name was Manny Malhotra. So Manny Malhotra played for the New York Rangers, played hockey. That kid was maybe I would say top 5 best players I've ever seen in my life. Like
for hockey.
For hockey, top 25 for basketball. Like he was really good. Like really good. And I remember one summer he went away. He came back because he played minor hockey, then he got drafted pretty high. Actually, if you want to check how high he got drafted, go online, check out Manny Malhotra. He got drafted like super high, like really high.
Wait, are we talking NHL or NBA?
NHL. But yeah, he was so good. I remember he came back like his. If you're in the U.S., it would be your junior year, but grade 11. I think grade 10, grade 11, he came back, and remember he's playing hockey. So he has all the facilities of playing hockey, all the weight training, all the food, all of that
on
stuff.
The regular.
He was jacked, like 6'1", 6'2", like solid muscle. I was like, are you coming back for sure? He's like, I don't know. I'm just gonna work out, do whatever. It was summertime. I saw him. I played a basketball game at his school. What, 6? 7th overall NHL. That's my guy. But he's such a nice guy though. Such a nice guy. But yeah, I remember seeing him. He played junior basketball, and you know when you see a man amongst boys, that statement. That was him. Like he looked like a grown, like chiseled man made out of granite, and he was just doing damage.
And that's what Steve Nash was after that.
No. Here's where we circle back. So he ended up marrying Steve Nash's sister.
Oh.
So it's a weird combination. So if you really think about it, that mentality of Nash and his physical abilities into a super child, my gosh, wow. And I'll tell you this: the rest of his family, awesome people, amazing at different sports. Brother, amazing. His brother was really good at basketball, but even better at soccer. Like they were the family.
Were athletes then.
All of them. Parents, I think, were both teachers. You couldn't tell they were athletes, but the kids, they came out all athletes. And in Manny, I'm gonna say this because he most likely, I pray he doesn't hear this. I remember when he was in the 7th grade, he had a high top fade. And I was like, wow, who's this kid with a high top fade that's like crossing over people? Like he's doing pretty good. And I remember people used to like bug him, and he was like less than like 4 feet, maybe 5 feet. And then just seeing how he's grown and progress, amazing. But circling back to NCAA, why I love it so much. Again, it's the unpredictability of knowing that
all these upsets, man.
Any given, oh man, you know what? I hate y'all for this. You know what? I want y'all to take a look, or just in your mind's eye, look at this. So I have 2 sheets of paper because someone left it here, stat guy. And and they have all of the games that were won through the NCAA tournament. This is the first NCAA tournament where I've been totally stumped, except for like if you guys haven't heard it yet, spoiler alert, North Carolina Gonzaga is, I think, Monday. The last time I messed this up this badly was when Kemba Walker and Connecticut won. And when they won, I was so happy but so upset because my whole bracket was messed up by Connecticut. Like, so I had not everything. I'm not one of those guys who has like statistics everywhere, but everything. But this year is the one year where I don't mind losing this badly because there was such a great presence of great Canadian talent throughout. Oh, I'm hitting it too hard. I know. I'm that passionate. But there was a lot of great Canadian talent was spread across a lot of different teams. Either they're going to be going to those teams, or they're already on that team. Like Dwayne Notice from St. Mike's and from Thornhill. You got Dylan Brooks from Mississauga again.
Who did you want to win between Oregon and North Carolina?
Don't say that. That's
Hey, there's
that
major
hurts.
Canadian presence on one team.
What I wanted to happen, and this is my perfect circumstance, would have been Oregon versus South Carolina.
Okay.
Because hear me out.
Wait, did you even think South Carolina was going to come this far?
No way. Sorry, South Carolina.
So
I love
we
you to
have this
death.
bracket at work between 20 of us?
No one has it. Oh no, Gary has it. Yeah.
There's one guy who's actually predicted this.
Yeah, this exact circuit. Yeah. No, man. Yeah, man, you're not there, man. I don't know.
Oh my God.
If you want to get in your mind's eye, there's a guy over here shaking his head, saying that's impossible. No, it is possible. He's gotten. I think he's gotten 75% of it right.
It's crazy. Although I was looking at some numbers before we were talking about this, and in the first round you had 5 upsets. I'm like, that's a lot of upsets, right?
Yeah.
But last year there were 10 upsets.
Yeah.
And that was the most amount of upset last year. If we were doing this last year, we'd be like, our minds would be blown just because of the amount of upsets that was going on.
Oh yeah.
And this year, each round you go on and there's like at least a 25% chance that these are facts. 25% have been upsets.
I'm gonna predict this. I don't know if it'll be years from now, but I'm predicting one day there will be a first seed and a second seed in the same bracket that will lose. It's gonna happen in the next 10 years. I bet
first seed has never lost.
It's gonna happen.
It's
gonna happen.
NCAA.
It's gonna happen. There's a second seed. Yeah, that's happened.
It's a lot of times.
A first seed. It'll take a lot. Again, this is why I love college basketball. It'll take luck. It'll take timing. It'll take just serendipity. It'll take something crazy to happen, and that will be, you know what would be even more funnier if it's a what is it called again, a play-in seed. If it's a play-in seed who has that first game, who has like momentum behind them, and they go against a first seed and they're just like, no, we're gonna win it. Like Florida Gulf, like if Florida Gulf Coast last year was there, or 2 years ago, and they ran through people, or Lee side went against Duke and Duke was at number 1.
Yeah, 2.
They were number 2.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was a number 1.
Yeah.
Oh, CJ McCollum would be like, he would go. I think Lee side's in, is it upstate New York? But he would basically be like a deity there.
Well, they're all deities, and so this is a difference between college and NBA basketball. You have players that, even if they're there for 1 year, Kevin Durant goes back, he gets a standing ovation. He was there for 1 year.
Oh,
he was there for 1 year. Different from the NBA because you have to be like a Kobe or like a Michael Jordan to be like completely immersed in that city.
Yeah.
Even guys like throw somebody at me that played for like Chris Paul. Where does he sit? Is he Clippers? Is he
New Orleans, or is he
right?
Charlotte, or
like,
is he
exactly?
Is he so big at Wake Forest that he can't
college? In college,
oh, it's totally
like
distorted.
He's Wake Forest. You go to Wake Forest and Chris Paul walks through, he gets a standing ovation.
Okay, so again, Steve McLeod.
The C parts for him.
Steve McLeod's story of the day. So I used to work at a company that was out of Austin, Texas. I love Austin. So I went into their bookstore.
I know why you love Austin.
Oh, what do you mean? Why? Oh, because of the food?
No,
don't say nothing. You say nothing about Austin after that. Me and you will talk afterwards. But I walked into the bookstore. That makes me laugh. I walked into the bookstore, and if you ever get to go to Austin's bookstore for the school, I hope it's still there. There's placards on the wall of different people there. So one of the people that was on there was Sonia Richards-Ross, who's Jamaican like I am. And then Kevin Durant, Tristan. I think Tristan Thompson's face was up there. So this is how much they were revered in terms of college athletes. So I was supposed to go to a college football game the next couple days later. Go Hook 'em Horns. But yeah, they worship those athletes because those athletes are like the best of the best. I remember talking to one of the people at the front, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, where are you from?" I'm like, "Toronto." literally they stopped and they were like, "Oh, do you know Corey and Tristan?" I'm like, "Maybe through association, yeah, but no, come," and full-fledged 10-minute conversation about Toronto basketball in Austin, how the team is going to do stuff like that. And
So, what are the other players you've had run-in with, or somebody you know?
oh, you want to hear this story? So it's not my story; it's my brother's story. Shout out to Mike. Um, so going back to NCAA tournament and talking about our friends at Oregon, there's two stories behind it. One's an article, one's an actual story. So my little brother has a good friend whose brother is playing basketball in Tennessee high school. He's going to be going to University of Middle Tennessee next year in Conference USA. That's going to be awesome because I want to go see one of his games. So we're at some showcase, and I want you guys to picture a large gymnasium, and on there's two to four courts. Kids are playing. They're in jerseys with numbers on them, everything. So there's a big bleacher on one side, I think either behind it or on the side, and then on the wall there's just chairs with NCAA coaches all going down, assistant coaches. And you know they're coaches because it looks so surreal because you see like golf shirts going all the way down, like 50 of them, but different schools on each of them. And then they have their clipboards. So my brother's friend, his little brother's playing, and he's pretty good. He's like 6'5", 6'6", wiry, very, very smooth when he plays. And then my brother hears like screaming, like "Rah!" And then crowd just going nuts. "Rah!" Crowd goes screaming. Silence. The crowd goes screaming again. He looks over. He looks over at this court, and it's Dylan Brooks. My brother doesn't know who it is. It's Dylan Brooks, and Dylan Brooks is doing work like Birdman. Like he wants to I'm gonna get all three of y'all. Like you. Like, oh, y'all finished, y'all done. That's exactly what he was doing. He was putting in work. And my brother was like, it was like my brother. I wish I could call my brother right now to ask him what he did. But he said in a sequence, he said he thought he saw Dylan Brooks do the following. Take a rebound, run down court, throw it behind his back, hit his man perfectly, man lays it up. The defense comes back down as offense. They steal the ball. They set up. He comes through the lane, does a LeBron right through the lane, dunks it. Like, you know when LeBron cocks it back and dunks it?
Oh, you mean when you get out of the way?
When you get out of, when women and children have to be safe. Okay. You elderly have to be secured in their seat in the upright fashion, like that type of stuff. And
brace for impact.
Brace for impact. If you've ever seen World War Z, that was what it was like in the plane. Like that was it. Like it was just like a force of nature against like regular human beings. And my brother was like, man, there's some kid who was just doing work. That night, I have my office in the basement, and I remember my brother's just like, man, there's some kid that was like doing work. I don't know who he is. Supposedly he's from Mississauga, goes to Henry Carr, and I'm like, who was that? Is that Dylan Brooks kid? Because I heard about him too. And I remember going to YouTube and we looked him up, and we saw the sequence. And my brother's like, yeah, that guy's too good. And we started looking him up, like, oh, where does he rank? Dude, he wasn't. He was like. Here's the thing. I wanna just let you guys know this. So when you look at like Rivals.com or any of those websites, their ranking is more or less like, okay, you live in the United States, you're not international. Unless you go to a school within the States, you're ranked within those guys. Great sites like North Pole and other places like that do rank our kids accordingly, or like properly against each other. But the one thing that happens in terms of the Canadian kids is that here's the thing. I know recruiters know the Canadian kids. That's fine. But one thing I want to let you guys know, there's a great article by a guy named Mike Meninga, by Neil Bess about Mike Meninga, and he's the guy who recruited what's called again, Dylan Brooks to go to Oregon, and now he's on Oregon staff. So the one thing, and I told Saarim this
We
story.
talked about
I
this.
told you at work, and you were like, "What?" So the article is basically, this is the Reader's Digest version, real quick. So he used to work for the University of Maine in Buffalo, and there was I think it's in the article. I think it was in another article as well. But there was a story about how they stationed him at Niagara Falls, like just taking care of kids there, and he was like, "Are you sure about this? Like, I don't
Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls.
Why?
Like, I don't understand this." So he would, all of a sudden, he's like, "Oh, there's some really good Canadian kids," but he didn't tell anybody. There's really good Canadian kids. Maybe I'll just drive up to Toronto. Station me in Niagara Falls. I'm okay with it now. I'll drive up. So again, you'll see an influx of kids going to like Illinois, going to Oregon, going to certain schools. Like you'll see like an influx. Like Boucher is on Oregon. You're like, how is that possible? He's from Montreal.
This is all Mike Ninga's influence.
All his influence. Innes, you're like, how did he get? He went from Rice to Villanova to there, and you're like, how did he end up there? Well, his dad and Mike have a relationship, so Mike is able to kind of like pull from that CIS bounce in Ontario feeder bed.
He's creating his own feeder network right now.
He's creating his own feeder, and think about it like this: the last couple of great players from Canada that came in, like. Let me see here. So you have Tyler Innes. You have I remember there was like 2 or 3 drafts where there was always a Canadian in there. Kelly Olynyk. What's his name again? On the Timberwolves.
Anthony Bennett.
No,
Andrew Wiggins.
No, Anthony Bennett. Anthony Bennett. I'll give him credit. When he was in high school, think about it like this, guys. I think him getting drafted to Cleveland was kind of a mistake. If he went farther down, I think he would have maybe succeeded a little bit longer. But again, it's another example of a Canadian kid who did good by himself. And again, he took advantage of a situation where he was at UNLV and he was able to get drafted. But again, going back to that feeder system, again, Toronto, Nova Scotia, other places, they're all feeder systems. So one thing I want to just tell you, I want to just ask you a couple questions here. Sorry, I'm flipping this over. I'm the guest. I'm not the guest no more. A couple of things, like three quick things. Did you see Mississippi State's win against Connecticut? Oh, yeah, exactly. No, don't get me wrong. I love Connecticut's women's basketball team. Yes, Miss Nurse, you're a bad woman. I tell you that. And you don't know because she's from the Ontario area. You gotta rep like people who are there. She's a wicked Canadian national player. I give her that. But yeah, a 111 game win streak.
Broken. And that shot wasn't supposed to go in.
Okay, so
that shot was not supposed to go in.
I want all of you, if you have headphones on, just to kind of turn down the thing. That was the greatest game ever. I'm telling you that right now, kid. I'm telling you. Like, did you see? Oh my gosh, that's why I love NCAA basketball, because you could beat teams by 40 points for 10 years straight, and then you are guaranteed punch the ticket to the finals, and you lose.
And it all crumbles.
And you know what the funny thing is? It's Mississippi State versus who? South Carolina. 2 SEC teams. Like,
how often does that happen?
not often. Tennessee used to be the big one. God rest her soul, the coach. But yeah, it used to happen a lot. Okay, so I'm gonna transition again. I know I'm a scatterbrain. I know you guys love me for it. 2 people that blow my mind in terms of high school basketball right now, and it makes me. One of them makes me so proud, and one of them scares me, and it makes my heart so warm. Zion Williams. Did you see the dunk that he did last night?
I did not.
You know what? I'm not even gonna show you. I'm gonna let everybody out there. If you've seen it on Instagram, if you've seen it anywhere, Do you remember? Okay, there's a dunk that you kind of throw it up, and then you're doing a 360, but you're grabbing. Remember, Gordon did it. Remember when he did the spinning mascot?
Oh yeah.
And he caught the ball, caught
One
it back.
hand, yeah.
He did it off a bounce, and it's crazy. The craziest thing, literally, it's the second craziest dunk I've ever seen in my life. No, fourth. In person.
Named them.
Oh, what my craziest dunks I've ever seen in my life? Obviously Vince Carter. There's that one. Vince Carter's in the slam dunk competition.
Okay.
Where he did the 360.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, one of them is the actual human being that I actually saw do it. The third one is Michael Jordan over what's his name again? Patrick Ewing at Madison Square Garden, where he did the spin off.
Spin and then yeah.
But third is there's a guy, I don't want to say his name because I don't know if I'm gonna be allowed to. But I remember I was at Sheridan. This guy built like a tank.
Say his name.
No, his name's Granville. I give him so much respect. I think he played football, and he did a windmill. You know when you see someone do a windmill, and the ball wants to go back through the net and it goes flying.
That much force.
He was at least 6'1", 225. No, you know what? I'm making a story into something bigger than it is, but it was the greatest dunk I've ever seen in my life. But
I'm making it too much bigger than it
actually is.
But it was the greatest dunk ever.
It was one of the craziest dunks I've ever seen in my life. For someone that side. Another person, R.J. Barrett. I know you don't know who he is. If you look him up, it will make you smile inside. He's Rowan Barrett's son. If you don't know who Rowan Barrett is, I think he's the national director for Basketball Canada right now. He was, I'm not going to say he was a god here, but he's one of my favorite Canadian basketball players. And now his son plays in Florida, and guess who he used to play behind?
Who did he play behind?
I think, I hope it was the same. I hope he was there at the same time. He goes to the same high school as Ben Simmons did.
No
they're
way.
doing damage. And they have other Canadians on that team. But I digress. If you ever get to check him out, because I think he's number 2 in the country in the U.S.
R.J. Barrett.
Now here comes a big question for you. And I saw this article. How much
feeling
time?
like I'm
how much
on the
time
hot
do we
seat.
have? 2 minutes? Whoa, yeah, rapid round. Should NCAA players get paid?
I absolutely believe they should get paid. What do you think, though?
Oh no. I'll tell you I think. Oh, I'll frame it like this. There was I think it was an article in Bleacher. Don't quote me on it. Where it showed the importance of an NCAA program and how much money the actual program brought in, and then how much each player would actually make. It had Louisville. If Louisville played their players, what they were worth for the whole program, it was like $1 million, $1.7 million. I know that's a wide range, but
I'm gonna throw something else at you. There's more money, more revenue generated during March Madness than there is through all of the playoffs.
You said I think it was either you or someone else asked me that. They're like that, and then college football. What's the money difference between college football and that? I'm like, I really don't know. It's like, close. I think it's close.
Could you imagine these 17, 18, 19-year-old kids walking away with $1 million, $2 million?
Here's the thing. I'll say this quickly because I know we don't have that much time. I think NCAA players should be paid a certain, or given, not liberties, but given certain benefits where they get food, they get a credit card, they get food, they get clothing, they get shelter every month. Money's put into escrow. That's it. It's put into like an insurance plan. So if they don't
make it to the NBA,
if they don't make
it professionally.
Exactly. They'll have money for a graduate program or a program of their choice. And then when they get out into the real world, there's
some sort of program to
a little bursary. Yeah, a little bursary like for their first house, first home, whatever it is.
So this is part of a larger conversation that we'll definitely have at another time. For now. Monday night.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, we will.
North Carolina, Gonzaga.
I want Gonzaga to win. Don't even ask me that question, dog.
Oh, you just made it.
So I already made a decision. I just don't want North Carolina.
Thank God we don't sit next to each other anymore.
Why? You want North Carolina to win?
I definitely want North Carolina to win.
No, I really don't. I don't know. It's It's not because I don't like Roy Williams. I love you, Roy. You are great. I loved you at Kansas. But I really want Mike Fuse to win. Like, I really want Gonzaga to win because here's the thing. I want a mid-major to win a national championship, and they're not called a Cinderella anymore.
It doesn't seem like it.
No.
All right.
Cool.
So you've got Gonzaga.
Yeah, man.
I've got North Carolina.
Okay, I'll do this. We'll have a bet. So
We're making it interesting now.
Yeah, man. So if Gonzaga wins, we'll do a challenge.
Okay.
So North Carolina wins, what do you want?
I'm gonna keep it simple. Just buy me lunch, dude.
Oh, on the rocks, man. I know that, man. Like, I totally know that. If Gonzaga wins, I can't make this work related, can I? And I'm not gonna feed into any stereotypes by getting Popeyes. Let me see here. Nah, wait. Man. You know what? 25 push-ups. Done. Straight goods.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, man. Oh, no. I know what it is. Steve is great. You have to say Steve is great anytime I say your name at work for one day.
But then there's confusing. We do have the great Steven.
Oh, yeah,
Choi.
man. Okay, then
we'll figure it out.
The 25 push-ups is fine, man. I like that.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, man.
This has been awesome. And we'll see how it goes tomorrow.
Go Gonzaga.
Yeah, no. We'll see how it goes. North Carolina's going to win.
Yeah.
And we'll take it from there. And
I'll say hi to the process for you tonight, man. I'm going to the Raptors game, man.
Oh, yeah.
The process.
The 6th. We got this game today.
Yeah.
Hopefully we end up in the 4th position. But and we face we face Boston. Go to the conference finals. It'll be all right. Okay. So cool. That is it for today, guys. Thank you for listening. And we hope you enjoyed this session as much as we enjoyed making it. Take care.